Hello, and welcome to lecture 4. Today, we're going to make buttons. Hopefully, you have watched the previous lecture because we're going to build on top of it. This is the code from the last lecture, and when you run it, it does something like this. In the last lecture, we created a window using this line. We created a list box using this line. Now, we're going to create a button as well. To create a button, we use this command. Remember, once we make the button, we have to make them appear as well. To make the button appear, we use this command. Now let's quickly run the program and see what we get. Hopefully, you enjoy the button you just created. Maybe you have already noticed that creating a button is kind of similar to creating a list box. This is true. Let's check out what other options we have. What if we want to create a label? We would use this command. Now let's try to run the program and see what happens. Notice how we created a label, hello. This label, hello, concurs with what we wrote here, next to the text section. Now, let's try something else. Let's try creating a text box. We should use this command. And if we run the program, you should see something like this. A text box is a box where you can type text in there. As you can see, the procedure is always the same. Depending on what you want to create, you type a different command. To create a text box, you type text. To create a label, you type label. To create a button, you type of button. So before I digress too far, let's return back to the button. You first create the button with this command, button command. Then you describe the characteristics with the rest of the code. Let's break this down. With the command button, you create a button. Once you create a button, you name it anything you want. I call mine Bobby. I can just as well call it Stacy.
Hey, that's my name.
Yes, it is your name. The point is that you can name the button anything you want. This first slot, we call it the first argument, is the location of the creation. Where are we creating this button? Well, we create it inside root. What is root? Root is the window we created before. See how the button is inside the window? This might not make sense now, but in the future, when we have like 5 windows at the same time, we need to make sure the buttons show up in the right place, in the right window. The second location, or the second argument, is what you want the button to say. If you change this to something like, oh poopy, the button will say, oh poopy. The last argument is the functionality of the button. When you press the button, what does it do? Does it print hello? Does it create a pop-up window? Does it give you money like the ATM machine? Well, this argument controls all that. Later, we will write a set of instructions aside from the code called functions. Functions will be what the button would do when you press it. Let's go back to the code. As you can see, we created a button here. Now, we need to write the functionality of the button. To write the functionality, we would start with this line. The first word here, def, tells the interpreter that you are starting a function. You see, when the code is running, the interpreter goes and reads each line. Once he reads the line, it does something depending on what the line is. See how it goes and import a library, and then it creates a window and creates a button and so on and so forth. When we write a function, we don't want the code to run it until the button is pressed. I mean, you don't want the ATM machine start spitting out money, or maybe you do. At least we need to have the ability to tell when to run it. In our case, when we press the button. So by typing def, the interpreter knows that it's a function and ignore it for now. Functionality you see here is the name of the function. When you press the button, it goes to command equals and looks for the name of the function. Just like any other name, you can change it to anything you want. For example, let me change this to call me. So right here, when you press the button, the function goes to command, looks for the name, it says call me, and it goes and looks for the function. And then it starts executing everything inside the function. You want to make sure that you match the name from the command to the name in the function. Right now it's easy because we only have one function. In the future, we might have many functions. So we need to make sure the name of the function is correct so the button does what it's supposed to. To start, let's just tell the function to say hi when you press it. Type this command. I am going to remove the list for now so we can concentrate on the button. As you can see, the code is simple. You create a window and then you create a button. When the button is pressed, it goes to the command argument, looks for the name of the function. The name is call me. So the interpreter goes and looks for that name. Once he finds call me, it runs the command inside it. In this case, when we press the button, it will print hi. Let's run the command and see what happens. Notice how when we press the button, it prints hi in the interpreter. What if we quickly add another line that prints something else? I'm going to type this. Now, if we run the program, it will print 2 lines instead of 1 line. Let's try to run it. Notice how it prints out 2 lines? It's because we have 2 print commands in the function. I also want you to notice that everything inside the function is indented. Remember how the interpreter ignores the function at first, and everything else inside the function as well. When you indent a line under the function, it means that it's inside the function, and the interpreter ignores it until the function is called. For the sake of another example, let's create another button. We'll call this button Jimmy. Notice how I switched the text and the command. I did this on purpose. The first argument always has to be the parent, or the window that the button resides in. After that, you just need to make sure you match up the keyword with the right argument. As you can see, command still goes with the function, while text still goes with what you want to write on the button. Now, let's write a function for this button. What should we make this button do? Oh, I know. Why don't we create a label? and we'll make the label say something like Jimmy Pooh. We'll create a function like this. Now, if we press the button, a label will come out. Let's try to run it. You see how if we use print, it will print to the interpreter. But if we use a label, it goes directly onto the window. Now, why don't we change the color of the label by adding this argument? Now let's try to run the program. You see how when I press the button, the color of the label is now different. FG, in this case, stands for foreground. You see how it changes the color of the label? You might be wondering if you can change the color for the button the same way. Yes, you can. Let's try it. You see how the button now has white text when we run it. So if FG stands for foreground, then does BG stand for background? You guessed it right again. You can change the color of the background as well. Let's try to add it to the button as well. Now let's try to run this program and you will see a different background. The point I want to make is that you can add many arguments to describe the perfect button you want. So where can you get a list of all the options you have to change? Well, it will be inside appendix section in the textbook. I will give you a list in it, obviously, and a description of what they do. So, today we have learned how to create buttons and make them do something. We learned how to create the text on the button as well as the color of the button. We also learned how to write functions that performs a set of instructions when you push the button. For your homework, yes, we have homework. I want you to program something like this. When you push the button, the list prints out a list of your friends. If you have any problem doing this exercise, make sure you check out the answer folder in this chapter. This is all the time we have for now. This is Chieh. Until next time.